Yeah.
All right, what I'd like to do is just ask questions and just find out what things were like with my great-grandparents and the relationships and everything that was going on in the 20s, 30s, 40s,
That's all right.
50s, how farming was like back then. And so I got Ralph Clausen here. And Ralph, you're 89?
I
Yep.
suppose.
Yeah, that's my mom, Ceil McGill, Pat Hennessy, Beverly, Uncle Tony, Tony Clausen, Steck, and if you hear anybody laughing, it's because of this guy.
No.
And that's Aunt Ruthie Shoemaker, and
Schumacher.
I got Jane. Boy, that son's okay. Jane Herkenbach, right? Or Kurtenbach. God, why did I get that mixed up? And then Larry Shoemaker was my oldest cousin, and Michelle, Ralph's granddaughter, and I'm Brian. Okay, so I just want to ask some questions, and whoever wants to jump in, just go ahead. And why don't you tell me about your Grandpa Clausen, or your grandfather Clausen. So why don't you go ahead, Ruthie? Why don't you know first? Well, your grandfather Clausen. Or why don't you do, Tony? Why don't you go ahead?
You want me to start out?
Yeah, Grandpa Clausen.
Grandpa was a good old boy, but he did have Parkinson's disease. And he sat there all day like he had on both hands. And he sat there all day like that, and we were kids, you know, probably 10, 12, 13, 14 years old when they came out to stay with us. But anyhow, he always smoked a Wellington pipe, you don't know what that is, but that was that crooked stem pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of hung down on his jaw. And then about every so often, you know, he wanted his pipe lit. And he couldn't lit it, you know. He couldn't fill it, he couldn't shake it. But anyhow, then I was running around outside, you know, and he'd get me to fill that up with tobacco, you know, and then we'd light it, but then I had to start it, you know, too. And Grandpa slobbered on his lips. That was the sweetest thing to start. But anyhow, I'd get it started for him, and I'd put it in his mouth. And it kind of hung on his chin down here. And he got along pretty good. But when he wanted to take it out, he just reached up there and he'd take it out a little bit. Put it back in, and then he'd smoke again.
I think he had quite a shrinkage with his tobaccos sometime too, didn't he?
He lost it.
He kept it in a can.
He smoked that,
Prince Albert?
no, that light stuff.
Velvet?
Corn, you remember that?
Corn silks?
No, it wasn't corn silk. But anyhow, it was the cheap light tobacco. I should remember the name. You remember it, Leroy?
No.
Hell, we used to smoke the same.
No, I never smoked. I had the barn when they were hiding, I didn't know.
They had one that was North State. That was one of them, Golden Grain.
Oh, the Bull Durham.
Yeah, couldn't have been Bull Durham.
No, in a sack.
They get it in a pound sack.
Mm-hmm.
So what about his disposition? What kind of a person was he?
Oh, you couldn't find a nicer guy. For the trouble he was in, you know. He fell and broke his arm in 1938, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then
Mom, you let me see.
you went to town. No, I was Ruthie.
Ruthie,
No,
yeah.
I stayed with him.
You went to town and kind of stayed with him. Did you?
Yeah, I had to stay with him I was 13 years old when I had to go and stay with the grandpa and grandma Clausen.
So how long did you stay with him?
And I stayed with him until in May. Because in March, we were gonna go to church, and he walked out the door, and it was icy, and the sidewalk kind of slanted down. He fell, and he broke his arm right up here. And I had to call that doctor, and I called mom and dad that they should come in. They couldn't set it because of his hand always shaking like that.
What they do as far as the doctor then? Did the doctor come out to see you or?
Yeah, yeah, he come up, because, Grandpa never had a car.
How big of an area did that doctor cover? Was it all of the farm area around Humphrey or?
Free and a lot of people around St. Ben and Cornley and that.
Okay,
But people didn't go to the doctor like they do now.
yeah. And his wife, your grandmother, how was she?
She had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
At that time, nobody knew what Alzheimer's was. They'd say, they called it, they're losing their mind.
Senile.
They're getting a little
Senile,
childish.
they call it, yeah, and getting shy.
Childish.
Childish, yeah, that was
Childish, yeah.
right. Childish. But that happened already about in 40,
She was childish when you worked there, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah. She
about
was rubbing
36
small.
now. Well, they celebrated their golden wedding in 1936.
Yeah.
And this would have been before that, because she was pretty bad at the golden wedding.
So what was the weather like in '36?
Dry.
Was it a dry year?
Yeah, it was dry.
It was a dry year and we had lots of snow.
Lots of snow.
It seemed like them years, just one dry year after another, wasn't it?
Yeah, more or less.
Short crops and,
Yeah.
Some years they didn't even pick the corn, right?
yeah, just.
Picked it out of the sloughs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was 3 years. In 36, we never picked corn. We chopped, they cut at that time with corn binders, you remember that? And then they bought that little silage cutter, paw, feet, however about. And then they run that through and they went through they chopped it all. Put it in. First of all, they dug a pit silo. They took the dirt out of the ground with it. And the silo was like this, about 8 or 10 foot tall out of the ground. Anyhow, they worked days putting that full of silo. These kids remember that, don't you?
I remember that, because
I too.
yeah, I remember you kids were over there, and boy, we were going up and down. That was something for us to entertain ourselves.
That was entertainment.
Uh-huh. It was
And
fun.
we
Too
would
bad
ride-
you didn't
ride a
have
horse, you
skateboards.
remember that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
What were you doing riding a horse?
We rode a horse to pack the silage down.
Oh,
It was outside piling.
But,
That was outside in the trench or something.
yeah. But first you had to take the dirt out of the ground with a little,
Little slip scraper.
a little slip scraper.
Yeah,
That
that
took
was,
quite a few days.
that was a major operation.
They didn't go over too good. We used them a couple of years and then you had to pitch it out,
Yeah.
you had to pitch what out? Oh, the dirt.
The silage.
Oh, the silage.
Pitch the silage.
Yeah.
Okay.
When in the wintertime, wouldn't that been frozen?
No, in the ground, it kept it thawed out.
Well,
The heat and
yeah.
the silage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I think some people put ground on top. That
Yeah.
froze.
Yeah.
Frank Wagner, I know when I worked for him,
You mean bump, huh?
but he was gonna make his fortune in St. Ben, remember?
Well, the dad called him Bump, and what's his name? Bump Wagner called him Jigs. He said, "Well, you quit calling me Jigs, I'll quit calling you Bump."
We put in a fence for that. Anyhow, it was Uncle Pete and my dad and Bump and me. But anyhow, that we was eating lunch and then he said, "Now that's got to quit. That's got to quit." He says, "That young bump, old bump, big bump." He says, "No more bump."
Oh,
Well, let's have another bump here. I mean, Frank here and Frank there and Frank there. Anyhow, then the next morning I had a couple he had a couple sheep. So he'd come driving in and my dad come walking over that way by the car. Oh, yeah, he says, Sporty, I come over to sell jigs them cheap. My dad's so mad. No, Bump, he says, you ain't gonna sell him no cheap. He thought if he could call us jigs and Bump, I mean, the jigs and Sporty, we could call him Bump.
So your dad was Sporty.
Yeah.
Sporty, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get that name?
How did you get that name?
Well, the way I understand, that's why I use kind of better way. But anyhow, when they moved back from South Dakota, things were tough, you know. Father got a new suit since he got married. But anyhow, when he got back, and I think the first year they had a pretty good crop, and he bought a new outfit, you know. He got a new suit, new shirt. And guys at church, boy, you look sporty this morning.
That was
Kept that
sporty.
name.
Well, how did you get the name Jigs?
Well, I got that from Joe Backus. You know, them days, you remember. when-
Didn't you get hurt or something? And
Yeah, but the way it started, when I, when you sold cattle them days, a lot of times you roll along the truck down, and then you get your check, and then you ride the truck